We have this evening for a Q&A session with us the director of ACID Forest, Rugilė Barzdžiukaitė. Welcome and thanks for accepting our invitation.
Hello, thank you for inviting.
I want to remind our audience that you can take part in this discussion by posting your question under the live streaming on Facebook, on the Pelicam webpage, but also on the platform online.pelicam.ro, where we screen the documentary. First, to break the ice, Rugilė, I would like to ask you, how did you choose the topic for this mesmerizing documentary?
So the very first inspiration was actually the last shot of the film, when you see the fireworks and thousands of cormorants flying away. So this is the image, the outcome of the of this regulating routine, which surprised me because visually, first of all, because from fireworks you would expect some sort of celebration usually, and in this case it's the opposite for another species. So it was the very first impulse to go there and to research further.
Thank you. It looks from your documentary that the cormorants have their own voice. They play a very important role in telling the story, and the whole focus is decentered from the usual suspect, the human, to another species. Did you plan from the beginning to have a more than human approach to give the cormorants a voice?
Well, actually, it was very unplanned from the beginning. The concept was built very gradually. So we went with Dovydas Korba, who was a collaborator. We went to this place, and which surprised us. And then I knew that I wouldn't like to make a conventional nature documentary for sure, but how to approach the topic, which is about nature. And even though it feels as a very surreal topic in a way, but at the same time, how to speak, it wasn't clear for me from the beginning. But then when we went there, I saw that, okay, birds are migrating. Their migration and their life cycle, natural life cycle, is trying to be controlled, but people are migrating even more. And the tourists who come from all over the world, they came to the view very naturally, because I saw this platform, and then seeing this platform, this intuition that they should be the storytellers came, and then from which angle to look. So cormorants were, of course, the ones who are looking naturally. So it was very gradually sensoric research on the ground.
It is surprising for me, and for sure also for the audience, how people can have such a wide spectrum of attitudes towards the forest and the cormorants, and what the cormorants do to the forest. Did you decide from the beginning to include such a variety of options, or was this decision like a serendipity? It was made during filming?
The film was made for quite a few years. It was officially, we say that it was 3 springs of shooting, but actually I made a short film for Goldsmiths University as my graduation film 5 years ago, maybe. And then gradually, I had this intuition that there are much more stories, like a parallel stories to be told, not just this ecological triangle, but also the parallel associative topics. For me, was very clear topic was how the birds are controlled. So like fascism was in my mind, then racism, because they are blackbirds, as you heard someone told, but they're blackbirds, while white birds who are doing sort of similar things, they are not so marginalized. So the racism topic, so these were, or like migration control in general, how people are also control themselves with visas and other geopolitical issues. So these were these like topics which were in parallel with the psychological triangle. And then, so I was very much looking for very particular things to be articulated in the film. So these are, I had this intuition, but of course it's a present of documentary that you wouldn't think, I couldn't write in a script about Hitler bunker. I would lack imagination, I think, but this was what I was looking for. Also for people to laugh, so that the seriousness of the, when you have these two contrasts, then it works as a, I think, in a better way. These contradictions that people laugh, and in a second scene they can hear something very serious, and then.
And the story that we get about this habitat and the ecological dynamics is very complex. It's not only visual, but it's also lots of sound and smell and movement, and it's a very, very complex image of the whole habitat. But it's also presented in a sort of mythical way, or people don't really know much about the ecology. Everyone has their own opinions. Sometimes people see them as pests, sometimes they see it as wonders of nature. And only in the second half we have this interview with maybe an ecologist or a biologist, right, that tells us a bit the story of the return of the cormorants. And she associates it with 1989, when all this part of Europe underwent massive political transformations. Has there anything changed in Lithuania? I mean, the government's attitude towards nature protection that allowed the return of the cormorants around that time?
Actually, I wouldn't say so. Like the massive changes in political arena was in 1991 when the independence came, but I wouldn't say that there were some very strict changes. I think they just liked the place. And the interesting thing is that cormorants are coming to the spot where they were born usually. So probably, as we hear that from many countries, they are sort of has to fly away because of some. As you heard in France, they say, people from French, they say we kicked them out and then they flew here, or in someone in Finland say that he shoot it, although it was recently. But so they are suffering in many countries, but maybe that was the reason that few cormorants, changed their location, because usually they came to the spot where they are born.
And we can see this as sort of a return of the species on a long period of time. And we had a similar topic depicted in another documentary a couple of days ago, the return of wolves in Czech Republic. And one of the main points of the documentary was the public opposition against the return of that species. Do we have anything similar in the case of this area? I know it's a national park, but the villages around, or the summer resorts, express any sort of public opposition towards?
Yes, a lot. It's actually that is why they are regulating, because there is a lot of opposition. And so the ones who are the most the biggest enemies are, of course, the ones who are competing with them directly. So fishermen and also the foresters, in a way they are, and it's clear, this dilemma is clear, because they want to protect these 200 old pine trees, which are amazing, and then so they have this dilemma inside. But then people who come, especially Lithuanians, we used here, I don't know, 1,000 something, a very, very small percent of the material that we recorded. So most of the Lithuanians, they come with a very dark prejudices, like they have very only bad things to say about them. Except, of course, some small part, of course, has this more philosophical approach and questions it in a more positive way. But most are very much affected by media, and media is telling bad things, or only bad things about them. Like the fact that it was many years ago, it used actually to be, this peninsula used to be covered by oak trees mostly. They were cut and then pine trees were planted. So it actually, yeah, it's like a reverse. It's not how it always used to be, but people see it in their life cycle, and they can't remember it, so they don't take it for granted.
These sort of opposing attitudes are very frequent in Eastern Europe, wherever we have either a big population of bears or wolves, or strict protection of virgin forests like we have in Romania. And people can mobilize against such strict measures or these sort of realities that don't seem to work for them. But in the same time, a Western audience sees these environments as being wild, wilderness, untouched nature. And I'm curious if this area is presented to these tourists as being a wilderness, a place where nature can develop freely without intervention.
In a way, but like if you go, it's on a very touristic road, and it's just a small path from the main, and the peninsula itself, it's very narrow. It's less than 5 kilometers wide. So you go, and it's completely next to the main road. So when you just see it, and then when you come, you can read. But actually, I just recently, I'm in this peninsula now by accident, because we presented the film in another festival. So just yesterday, I spoke to the national park director. So she said that I realized only now that they are really, they would like to change the ad very much, and they're building now new stands, new, information.
Yes, observation platforms, or
yeah. And also new informational package. So maybe it will be more, less demonizing. It was more or less neutral how people come and see it, but now they will even put information about the film. So it's more and more voices for the cormorants.
We have one question from the audience. They ask if you put a camera on the cormorant, and how was this experience? If you did it, we don't know if you did so.
No, on the cormoran itself, we never did it. We put it quite close to the nest, so that experience was quite. We felt that it was quite dual, because we knew that to tell the story of cormoran, you need this shot, but it's quite intrusive. You come sort of to their bedroom. It's not like many people are asking, have you had the permission? And I ask, of cormorants? No, but then they are, of course, worried about permission from people. But so with cormorants, we tried to be not to come to their nest more than once, so that we come, they leave, and then they come quite quickly again. And then after 3 or 4 hours, we take the camera away and we don't come back. At least usually we try not to do it, so that they forget us. But and we couldn't use this soft method when you are observing from further away, not being so intrusive, because these are the places when they are on every nest, on every tree, and there are a lot of nests. And the shots where you have this cormorant view of when they are flying, so these are the drone shots. So we haven't put cameras on them.
Thank you so much for so many technical details. That is very, very interesting. And the public is very hooked by the aesthetics of the documentary. They also ask if people knew they were being filmed.
This is the question, which I said I'm always getting. So they, before they came, they didn't know. And usually they would observe, like we haven't masked any cameras and we didn't hide even the ropes. And we were always around if they have some questions, but before they are coming, they don't know. Except some shots. For example, the shot with Hitler bunker, one of the funny one. So this is the place where I've been on the tree, actually. I was on the tree going to pick the camera, but then I saw people coming and I couldn't escape already. So
they were aware of your presence.
But they saw me. I was pretending that I'm contemplating the forest like this on the tree, and then they just went to another story. So usually they saw us, they saw sometimes technical stuff, and our legal right to do it was because we do not show their faces. So it's the cormoran angle was also useful for that, because there were thousands of tourists which we shot and we didn't know which we will use afterwards. So it wouldn't be even possible to get there all the permits if we were shooting from closer.
Very interesting how tourists stop on the platform, and this is almost like a symbolical border between the realm of the tourist and the realm of the cormorants and of nature. The only persons that we see transgressing this realm are in the last scenes, those people that put the fireworks. Are they hunters, or are they people that manage the national park? Can you tell us a bit about that scene?
Yes, they are hired to do it, and they are ornithologists who usually, they love birds, and they do some science research for their museums and so on. But the main goal is to regulate it in a more soft and more knowledge-based way than it would be if like hunters would have been doing it. So it's a Ministry of Environment in Lithuania who orders this, and then they are just the winners of a project and they go with fireworks. They used some different methods before. They used something like a CD, a DVD, discs.
To cast the reflection.
Yes, something with just with a sound as well, but then only this one was effective enough. And I could be I was actually I checked that it's really effective, because in a way of regulation, because we shot this last shot when I was shooting my diploma work. So it was maybe 5 years ago. And then I thought we already started shooting using a better camera, and I thought I will do it in a better resolution. So 5 years ago, it was now like the number of cormorants who away visually, it's completely clear that it's much, much smaller, at least few times smaller. But this year they were not regulated. It's interesting coincidence. I don't know if the film had any influence or no, but it was quite well discussed in Lithuania. So, and I'm not completely sure why, but it was skipped this year. So it's a very nice
news. Did you have the chance also to screen it in the resorts or somewhere closer to the national park?
Yes, well, 2 days ago we screened here in Nida, so it's a next resort in a festival, and then some months ago so it was screened a few times already here in Kiruna and Split. It was quite well received. Yeah,
rightfully so.
People are saying that the ones who had a quite clear opinion about the birds, they now see it differently.
We have now a very exciting question from the public. They say, I appreciate the agency you give to the non-human actors. Guess this is difficult to do. Did you have any references or inspiration in film or literature, philosophy perhaps, to do so?
I heard later that there was a film from the rabbit perspective, which tells a political stories, some political narratives. I just recently heard about some, but I haven't watched any directly. And there are a lot of inspirations in general, but I wouldn't connect anything very directly. I think the way I work is always like you try to go and have a dialogue with reality and have a hook in it and inspiration from it, and then try to look for the form which suits the story. So I couldn't now think of something what could be the very direct. Well, for example, I remember once I've been in Werner Herzog's master classes, like a small school he had, Rogue Film School, and he very excitedly spoke how it is good to have in one shot to have this connection of different spaces. So I think when the cormoran flies from the above the lagoon and then above the healthy forest a bit, and then reaches the
pine forest,
like the white cormorants forest, inhabited forest. So I remember that it was direct inspiration, but a lesson which stayed with me, that I should try to have a shot which connects different physical spaces so that the audience is better orientated. It's not a rich answer, sorry, but
it is indeed a very rich answer, and it's very interesting. I also wonder if you had any guidance from the local ecologists in doing so, or from scientists that have been long studying this cormorant population, and how this interaction between you, a filmmaker, and the scientist went.
Yeah, so we had dialogues with different ecologists and some botanical of different sciences in general, who are coming each spring. They are coming in groups and do their researches. So we did some interviews, just recorded it in sound, so that we have, I don't know, just in case I have these different opinions and different stories, but the one which was the most interesting for me was actually the one who was in the film already, who gives this opposite, this a bit more complex overview of and more philosophical approach. So she was Jūratė Zarankaitė, the biologist who is here, who is based here in Huron and Spitz. So she was always very supportive during the filming, and yes, we're in touch still a bit. So she gave her view during the film.
Thank you so much. Some other person asks us if cormorants have natural predators.
Yeah, they do. The eagles.
The eagles.
Eagles and also crows, because crows are stealing the eggs. So usually the eagle would fly above and very calmly, very slowly, and do some circles above them. And then you would hear in their voices like alarm, a massive panic sometimes, and they would fly away. Like many of them would fly away, especially if it's just an early phase of their breeding, because later it would be, even with eagle, it's less, they're more stable in their nests. And then sometimes crows are coming before they come back and eating their eggs.
I see that the audience was very interested in this more than human voice given to the cormorants, and I suppose also wherever you presented the documentary, the excitement was equally high. Do you plan to use this technique in the future, or are you working currently on another documentary or on another artistic performance or creation where you use a more than human voice?
Actually, like I'm working both as film director, but also as in performance field. So
that's why I was asking. Yes.
So this film and this technique inspired very much our work Sun and Sea, which we present and did it with Lina Lapelytė and Vaiva Grainytė, my colleagues. But the very, so in this performance, audience is watching from above, just as cormorants did. And again, we have, they're watching two human beings as if they were from a distance, and this distance gives them opportunity to watch them as if they were some other species. That was my intention in this film, in Acid Forest, but as well in Sun and Sea. So in Sun and Sea, it's a beach, and people are just lying in a beach, and they're singing. So it's a musical performance, and the songs are in one way or another also very much related to ecological topics, disasters and climate changes, but in very, very soft and non-didactical ways. So, and it's also built as a mosaic, so you wouldn't, there is this axis, a topical axis, but you have to listen more so that you are aware that it's about ecological. We give this concern about ecological state of universe, not universe or planet. So I think it was the direct inspiration, and now maybe it might be that I will go to a bit different topic for the next film, but it's not yet very, very fixed.
We are looking forward to see the results in the future, and for us it was such a pleasure to have your documentary screened in the Eastern Docs competition. Our audience was very interested, and they will still be able to see our Q&A on the Facebook page. I want to thank you one more time for being with us this evening and for taking time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the nice questions.
I hope you have a great evening and a great weekend. Thank you so much.
You have a nice rest of the festival.